What's up, people? Hopefully you and your families are doing well. So today we're going to look at color grading. So I'm not a professional colorist, nor do I claim to be. I just tinker with it and I kind of do it at a professional level just to deliver to clients, but I'm not a professional colorist whatsoever. Color grading can make or break your image, and you have to get certain things down correctly, like exposure and etc. So I've been using two softwares. So one of the first softwares that I've been using for years, is called Grade, and the other one is kind of like the new kid on the block, but it doesn't really advertise itself as a color grading software. It's more of a film emulation software, which is called Dehancer. So we're going to kind of look at both of them and see the pros and the cons, or more so what you would use one for over the other. So let's take a look. So over here I have Grade. And the cool thing about Grade is that it makes color grading a bit more simpler, because as you see, you can just place your mouse anywhere and change the hue. You can change the exposure and etc. It makes color grading pretty quickly, and it's available for all the major editing softwares like Final Cut, Adobe, DaVinci, and etc. So a couple of things that I like about Grade is not only that you can change the hue, but you can see things like false color. And that can help you with your exposure before you get to using LUTs or even doing any of the color correction. It also has shot matching, which is huge, very, very huge. So say you have one scene and like 20 other scenes that look the same. You can just work on one scene until you get it perfect, and then you can match all the other scenes to that one scene that you color graded and put on a LUT and etc. It just speeds up the process. So the other thing is it has things like you can match a chart, and you can do look transfer. So if you have a favorite look from a movie, you can transfer the look onto your image. So it just has a lot of small but neat things that speeds up the workflow. And here we have the new kid on the block, which is Dehancer film emulation. As you see in the name, is more so emulating film rather than color grading. Yes, you can color grade with it, but some of the terms, it's kind of like rocket science. It can be pretty confusing if you're not accustomed to working with film, which I'm not. As you see, it's available for all those major editing softwares. You can also do photos with it as well. It has a lot of film profiles, and if we go down here, we'll see it at work. So this right now is the Kodak Vision 2383, and if we slide it this way, this would be the Fujicolor Eterna. That's how it would look. So it does a really good job at giving you that vintage feel. Some other things it can do is it has the Kodak Endura. Not too sure what that is. It also has film grain. So with film grain, you can add character to your image. So this is the clean image, and when you add film grain to it, it just gives it that filmic look, which is awesome. It also has halation, which is very nice, because with halation, it adds that red glow to the lights. It just, it's natural. It's not overly doing it. The other thing is bloom, which adds like an aura to lights and anything that's like white in the shot. It just gives you that extra touch to make it feel a bit more vintage and filmic. So enough talking, let's get into this. So over here I have a clip that I was working on. This was shot on the Red V Raptor, and it was shot in Red Code RAW. So if I turn off Grade, this is the raw image, and this is what it looks like. So after I turn on Grade, this is after I adjust it. So I would open up Grade, and this would be completely flat, and I would add the log to Rec 709, and then after that I will get to my color correction. So with this, as I said before, you can do things like false color, and you can see where the light is hitting and how exposed the skin tones are, and etc. You can do a lot with this in this color correction software. And after you do that, you can do things like exposure, shadows, midtones. You can do all of those adjustments, as well as contrast and color, temperature, tint, white balance, well, auto white balance, which I never use, saturation. You can adjust the shadows and midtones with saturation as well, and hue. So I can click on any place of this and just go up or come down, and it can change the hue of that point. So as you see, playing with this, it only changes the hue of their skin tone, which is pretty cool. Undo that, or I can click over here and it will change the hue of the blue, as you see, which is pretty cool. So you can do things like, if you have a sky and you want to make it teal, you can just click on the sky, and for the most part, it would change only the sky. So after you do all of your color corrections, you can click over here to shot matching. And if you had like 20 other scenes that are just like this, you can just copy over the color correction to all of those other scenes as well as the LUT. So as you see, this speeds up the process tremendously. And then after that, you can go to your final grade where you put on the LUT. So for my LUT, I have this right here. And as you see, that's the original color correction. And after I put on the LUT, it just blends those colors a bit more and makes the skin tones pop. And you can make more minor adjustments like to the exposure, highlights, midtones, and saturation, and etc. The other cool thing about Cinema Grade is that you can also add film grain. You can add like the size, and you can add the response and correlation and all of that. The only reason I don't really use film grain in color Cinema Grade is sometimes it doesn't work. That's the easiest way to put it. It just doesn't work sometimes. Sometimes I would do all of this, and then when I go to render it, it doesn't have any film grain whatsoever. So yeah. All right, and here is what Dehancer looks like. So let me turn off Cinema Grade and turn on Dehancer. So as you see, it automatically puts on a film emulation look, which I don't like. So what I usually do is I turn off everything first, even the film grain, and I usually probably will keep the static gate because that doesn't really do anything. And right up here is where I would make the first adjustments. So I would click choose camera, then I would choose my camera. In this case it's red, and as you see, it automatically puts a LUT. I would choose VRaptor and IPP2 RGW log 3G10. Yeah, which is the same as what I would choose up here. As you see, red, wide, gamma, RGB, and log 3G10. So it's the same settings I would choose there to start. So that's how it looks. I mean, I don't like it, but it's a good foundation to start from if you're only using this software. And here you can do things like exposure, color temperature. You can push it like right there. You can adjust the tint, probably put that back to 0, and the fringe, and etc. So you can enable the fringe and then make adjustments to see how it would look. I don't really see anything, so I turn that off. And over here is where you can choose your color profile. So the first thing I would do first is enable it, so you can see what it looks like when you choose these profiles. And usually I would choose like the Kodak Vision 500T because it's not doing too much. I mean, the 50D is pretty nice as well, but you can go through all of these things. 200T is pretty good as well. So it's between the 50D. I'll probably go with the 200T. Yeah. And you can push and pull to make it more aggressive or to make it, or to bring it back. So this is kind of like adjusting the LUT to make it more pronounced or to blend it with the original color correction. So I'll probably push it right there. And over here with Film Developer, I don't know too much of what this is, but you can play with it. I don't like it, so I turn it off, hide it, and then you have film compression. So like I said, a lot of these things is, if you're familiar with working with film, I'm not too familiar with any of these things, so I just leave them off. And you can expand, which probably is another film expression, but this is adjusting the contrast. So a lot of the fine tuning that you can do in Dehancer is with the film emulation, which makes sense because it's a film emulation software. And with the print, I like the print. I usually choose Kodak Glossy. Well, you have to enable it first. So it was linear, but I like glossy. It just adjusts the contrast a bit more. I wish this would include false color, just like Cinema Grade, so you can see if any of these blacks are crushed. With the screen this small, I'm gonna have to be guessing, or I'll just have to look at my scopes and my RGB, and it doesn't look like any of them are crushing, probably just a bit. So I will bring up the exposure a bit, but that doesn't look too great. So let me just leave it for educational purposes. And color head, and let's just go to film grain. So film grain is very simple. You can just choose what the film grain is, the size. 16 millimeter. 16 millimeter looks fine. I do like, let's just go with 16. And you can turn on and off halation. So with halation, as you see, the red around the arrow. You can also turn on masking so you can see where the halation effect is actually targeting, which is pretty cool. I wish it would do this, have this same effect for false color. If you guys can put that in, that would be awesome. I don't like halation for this. And you can do the same thing with bloom, so you can see where the bloom is being targeted. And you can play with this as well. And as you see, it's already looking pretty vintage. And you have other things like gate weave and overscan if you want to do things like that to really sell the film look. And the last thing that I would usually do is a vignette to really have that 50s, 60s film look. And you can increase it or decrease it. And yeah, that's how it is. So what I would usually do is I would do my color correction and then add film or Dehancer Pro on top of it. As you see, it looks really crazy. So let's just start this from scratch and you'll see how I add them together. So if I add Dehancer Pro on the image now, boom, and then turn off all of this, boom, boom. All right, cool. And over here, I would usually pick choose camera, so it doesn't add any of the built-in LUTs. And then I would skip all of that and go right down to the film profile. And as you see, it's just going on top of my color grade without adding another LUT on top of it. So I'll choose 200 again, and then I can scale that back, or I can push it all the way up. I'll just leave that as 0. All those other stuff I leave alone. I go right down to print. Boom. Instead of linear, I choose glossy, and that brings back the contrast. And I leave that alone, and then I go right down to film grain. And now I can choose how much film grain I want. 50, I think 35 is nice. And if I want to be extra, I can just turn on halation. Those are the, it just makes it look a bit more vintage with the halation around like these points right here, which is the hanger. And if I choose bloom as well, it just adds a little more pop. And you can see where the bloom is focusing, which sections the bloom is focusing or targeting. And that really is it. So you see how you can use both of these plugins in tandem with each other, because they aren't really in competition with each other at all, because you can use Cinema Grade for shot matching, color grading, and applying LUTs, and you can use Dehancer for film emulation. The other thing that you can use Dehancer for is applying it to pictures, because there's an online version where you can just upload your picture and you can make the proper adjustments. I don't do photography, so I can't give you a proper tutorial, but it's there if you need it. And you can also use the mobile app of Dehancer as well. So if you are on the go and you need to make a quick edit, you can do those two things with Dehancer, while with Cinema Grade, you only can do it on a computer. So if you're interested in purchasing Dehancer Pro, you can use my coupon code JJSCTech, and it doesn't matter if you use a subscription or if you buy it outright, it's just 10%. If you're interested in Cinema Grade, I have no coupon code for them. So you'll be buying it outright. It works pretty good, and there are many other color correction softwares out there. So if you have any questions about any of these two softwares that I use, comment down in that comment section right below the like button, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible. Other than that, I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Peace.